Good afternoon, dear students. How are you all doing? Good afternoon, everyone. What say? Come on. All going good? Yes or no? Come on. Good afternoon, Muhammad Anas Sarang. Mr. Nanda, good afternoon. KS Anag Madhu, Ranjit, Anushka, Nancy, good afternoon, everyone. Tanay, Dheeraj, Anusha. Okay. So, friends, we are on to our second class of Indian economy, where we were basically trying to understand how the Indian economy is going about. If you need some help, let me divide the timeline for you. We had started around about 1757 when the East India Company got into India, and we had completed the journey till 1947. Okay, how Indian economy during this period was basically stagnated. Okay, how the British colonized our economy, how the mortality rate was 218 per thousand infant mortality, how the life expectation was just 32 years, how the literacy rate was 18% or below 18%. You know, till 1947, such was the scenario. Friends, then we got to understand that till 1991, we were following the Nehruvian economic model. Basically, the Nehruvian economic model was based on the Nehruvian economic model was based on an economy जहां पर there would be a strong center. So it was kind of a socialist economy. Yes, we definitely write in our books as a mixed economy, but it was a strong center that was visible clearly. है ना? So there was a mixed economy with a strong center. And friends, I had communicated that this was also worst of the times. Worst of the times because this model really failed. Really failed. There were lots of restrictions, you know, lots of restrictions on the private sector. Sir, what were the restrictions on private sector? Sir, what were the restrictions on private sector? Friends, the restriction was, I will tell you, restrictions on private sector. Restrictions on private sector. You know, आपको कोई भी बिजनेस करना है, वॉट एवर बिजनेस अ प्राइवेट सेक्टर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन वांटेड टू डू, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू सी दे नीडेड टू हैव अ license. So the first problem was licensing system. You need to have a license. That was really not a very good idea, you see. So first thing was there was a license system. To add on to the pressure, you see, to add on to the pressure, first of all आपके पास licensing system है. Then there was restriction on business organizations having assets greater than 20 crore. Sir, what kind of restrictions? That is, they could not expand their business if you already have assets greater than 20 crore. Under the MRTP Act, Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act. You know, branches of banks were not allowed. So several restrictions, friends, there were several restrictions, some of which I have highlighted here. But guess what? The good news is around the 1990s, economic reforms started taking place. Economic reforms started taking place. Today's class will focus on those reforms. आज की क्लास उन बदलावों के बारे में बात करेगी जो 1990 के दशक के आसपास इंडिया में आना शुरू हुआ. We are going to talk about the change that started coming into the Indian economy around the decades of 1990s. Understood? Not understood, dear students? Yes, sir. It's clear, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear, sir. Sir, it's absolutely clear. So let's talk about some of those reforms. Of course, we will do the institute material. Institute material से भी अपने बात करेंगे, but उसके पहले कुछ reforms बताना आप लोगों को जरूरी है, जो मैं बता रहा हूं, प्लीज ध्यान से सुनिए. Economic reforms. These are some of the reforms. Friends, these are some of the reforms. Number one, you know what? Rupee was depreciated. Rupee was depreciated. Around how much? Around 30%. Around 30%. Now my question to you is why? We have understood foreign exchange rate. तो आप लोग मुझे बताइए रुपी का इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने डिप्रिसिएशन क्यों किया होगा? Why was rupee depreciated? ये जवाब आप लोगों ने देना है, मैं तो जवाब देने वाला नहीं हूं. मैं जवाब नहीं देने वाला, आप लोग बताइए. Come on, everybody. So let's try and understand everybody. See, rupee was depreciated around 30%. What was the logic? Why did the government do it? Now let me explain. अब मैं आप लोगों को समझाता हूं. ध्यान से सुनिएगा. अभी कुछ मत लिखिएगा. जो लिखना है आंसर्स मैंने देख लिया है. अब सुनिए आप लोग. हाँ, ओके. Suppose $1 is rupees, just for example's sake, okay, is rupees 50. For example, I am saying, huh? For example, I am saying $1 is rupees 50. Now I depreciate rupee. जब रुपया depreciate हो रहा है, that is $1 is becoming rupees 100. Oftentimes student get confused. अरे सर depreciation का मतलब तो गिरना होता है, तो 50 से 40 होना चाहिए ना? No, incorrect logic. Friends, rupee depreciated means value of rupee fell down. रुपए का वैल्यू गिर गया, मैं ये कहना चाह रहा हूं आपको. सो फ्रेंड्स, इफ रुपया का वैल्यू गिर गया, देन व्हाट डज इट मीन? इट मीन्स दैट सपोज आई बाई $1, तो फॉर $1 I get rupees 50 or I pay rupees 50. For $1 I get rupees 50 or I pay rupees 50. Then $1 becoming 100. Then $1 becoming rupee 100. Then $1 becoming rupee 100. Then $1 becoming rupee 100. Pay attention, huh? Then $1 becoming rupee 100 means what? का क्या मतलब है? इसका मतलब है कि पहले $1 50 में मिल जाता था, अब $1 100 में मिलेगा. तो एटीट्यूड, घमंड किसका बढ़ा? डॉलर का ना, क्योंकि रुपया तो अब 100 लगेगा $1 के बदले. This is exactly, this is what is called rupee depreciation. Understood, not understood? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes, sir. Very good, Nikhil. You have tried to give the correct logic. Miss Tambeshwari, Renuka, correct. So let's try and understand. Now, suppose there is one product in India, one product in India, Indian product. Okay? Listen to my language carefully. One Indian product is costing rupees, suppose for example, 10,000 rupees. Okay? Now, initially, this was just an example. Okay? So initially, $1 is rupees 50. Okay? So my question to you is, what is 1 rupee equivalent to? Friends, 1 rupee will be equal to, you all obviously guessed it correctly. आप लोगों ने इसको correctly guess किया. 1 rupee will be equal to 1 by $50. So friends, if 1 rupee equals to 1 by $50, if 1 rupee equals to 1 by $50, then what I tell you? Then what I tell you? It becomes 1 rupee becomes $0.02. If 1 rupee becomes $0.02, now friends, rupees 10,000 is the product value. So price of product for somebody, price of Indian product for somebody who is staying in, let's say, America, if they want to purchase this 10,000 rupees ka product, they will first have to buy 1 rupee, means 10,000 rupee. 1 rupee means the exchange rate. So to buy 10,000 rupee, they will have to pay how many dollars? Yes, around this. So if we try to solve it, dear students, it somehow lands around $200. It somehow lands around $200. It somehow lands around $200. सर बात तो सही है. सर बात तो सही है. सर यू आर करेक्ट. सर यू आर करेक्ट. Now pay attention. Now pay attention. Now pay attention. Yes, yes, KS Anag, you are correct. You are correct. Now, later, friends, later on, बाद में, later का मतलब बाद में क्या हुआ? जब $1 को 100 रुपए कर दिए गए, when $1 was translated to 100 rupees, friends, 1 rupee became how many dollars? You all tell me. Of course, sir, $0.01. So the price of the same product, when I say product, I mean the Indian product. I mean the Indian product. The price of the same Indian product, the price of the same Indian product went from or changed from 10. See, it remained in terms of rupee. If you see, वो 10,000 रुपया ही है अभी. वो 10,000 रुपया ही है अभी. But when translated into dollars, it became $100. So for the same foreigner, Indian product that was costing $200 is now costing only half, $100, despite the product value remaining at 10,000 rupees. Why does this happen, sir? It's because we have changed the value of dollar from 50 rupees to 100 rupees. And this will do what? This will make Indian products cheaper in the world market. This will make Indian products cheaper in the world market, and hence imports, or we should say exports of Indian products, export of Indian products is going to be on the rise. Of course, there is a lot of economics associated with it. I am just trying to explain why rupee was depreciated, जिससे हमारी कंट्री का एक्सपोर्ट्स बूस्ट हो सके. इज दैट क्लियर डियर स्टूडेंट्स? यस और नो? कम ऑन एवरीबॉडी, बताइए चमका नहीं चमका? कम ऑन एवरीवन. वेरी गुड. So as I can see, Anusha answered it correctly, Anushka answered it correctly, Anuj answered it correctly, Karthik answered it correctly. They are understanding it. Come on, friends. So why was rupee depreciated as a part of economic reforms? This is why, to boost exports. Sir, when I am discussing, see, actual reforms, if you talk about actual reforms, to be honest, actual reforms started taking place around 1991. But what I am discussing is, these are those reforms which took around 1995-86 period. Because badlav gradually aata hai. The change comes gradually. Just that only 1 year marks all the changes? Of course not. Definitely not. Yes, Sachi, your was also correct. So friends, if the first point is clear as a part of reforms, can I explain the second one? See, you are giving an MCQ exam. So you have to remember the concepts. आपको concepts पता होना चाहिए. Right? Word to word रटने का कोई जरूरत नहीं है. चीजें समझ में आनी चाहिए अपने को. Moving on, there was one more thing done in case of engineering goods. In case of engineering goods or industries, engineering goods, or let's say manufacturing industries, industry goods or manufacturing industry, concept of broadband licensing was introduced. Huh? Sir, what is this? Broadband licensing. Sir, what is broadband licensing, sir? Can you explain us, sir? Of course, I will explain it to you. First, everybody write it down, then I will explain it to you. मैं जो भी पढ़ा रहा हूं आपको इंस्टीट्यूट के मटेरियल से पढ़ा रहा हूं. वट एवर आई एम टीचिंग यू फ्रॉम ICAI material so that we stick to the topic. Okay? Okay? Okay. So, dear students, have a look. Okay? Okay? Let's have a look. What is broadband licensing? Suppose, friends, I am making an enterprise. Suppose I am making an enterprise with the name of, let's say, Ashish Kedia Enterprise. Just I have kept any name. Okay. Now, friends, in the old times, I have to take license from the government. Okay. Government gave me license on the basis of which I could do the work. Government had given me license on the basis of which I could do the work. Government used to give me license on the basis of which I used to do the work. So I'll write it down. Government issued license. On the basis of license, government issued license. License, on the basis of license, I used to get the permission to manufacture, suppose, trucks. Suppose I am manufacturing trucks. Suppose, for example, I am manufacturing trucks. Now, the broadband licensing allowed me that since the concept of manufacturing of trucks and the manufacturing of cars is almost similar, so to manufacture cars, I don't need license. This was broadband licensing. कि अगर मैं ट्रक्स बना ही रहा हूं तो लगभग एक तरीके का कमोडिटी मैं बना ही रहा हूं, तो उसी तरीके का अगर मुझे दूसरा कमोडिटी बनाना है तो मुझे क्या है, कोई गवर्नमेंट की अलग से परमिशन की जरूरत नहीं है. I don't need a separate permission from the government as such. Hello, friends. Yes or no? Come on, friends. Yes or no? Come on, friends. Yes, sir. Understood. Understood. This is called broadband licensing, basically, or broadbanding. This is also called broadbanding. Broadbanding. Broadbanding means if I have taken license for one thing, then for related things, I don't need a license. Of course, if I want to manufacture now clothes, कपड़े का काम अगर मेरे को स्टार्ट करना है ट्रक्स के बाद, तो उसके लिए मुझे अभी भी लाइसेंस की जरूरत पड़ेगी सरकार से. अभी भी मतलब आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द 1990 पीरियड. Hopefully it's clear, everybody. Yes or no? Come on, guys. Yes, sir. So these were two of the most important changes that was done by the government. Of course, there are many. Of course, there are many. One important thing was tariff rates was reduced. Sir, what is tariff rates? I have told you import taxes. Generally, when we say tariff rates, we talk about import taxes. Huh? So import taxes were, friends, reduced to some extent. Import taxes, my dear students, was reduced to certain extent. Import taxes, my dear students, was reduced to certain extent. So there was less taxation imposed on imports. You want to know the change? To give you a subtle idea, suppose if the tax rate was 70%, तो अगर मैं विदेश से 100 रुपए का सामान खरीद रहा हूं ना, तो मुझे एक तरीके से लगभग 70 रुपया सरकार को टैक्स देना पड़ता था. उसे बदलकर ग्रेजुअली 17% कर दिया गया. So it was gradually changed to around. Achha, these are not exact figures, okay? These are just ballpark figures, roundabout figures, not exact figures, of course. Import taxes reduced. You know, one more important thing, quota was abolished. Quota means quantitative restriction. पहले क्या होता था, क्वांटिटेटिव रेस्ट्रिक्शन होता था. अब बाद में क्वांटिटेटिव रेस्ट्रिक्शन ही हटा दिया. कोटा, यू ऑल रिमेंबर, वेयर देयर इज रेस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन हाउ मेनी क्वांटिटीज आई कैन बाई. विदेश से मैं कितने सामान, कितने यूनिट सामान को मंगा सकता हूं, पहले इसके ऊपर दोस्तों एक रेस्ट्रिक्शन हुआ करता था. ठीक है, पहले इसके ऊपर दोस्तों एक रेस्ट्रिक्शन हुआ करता था. ग्रेजुअली डियर स्टूडेंट्स वो रेस्ट्रिक्शन रिमूव कर दिया गया. ग्रेजुअली डियर स्टूडेंट्स वो रेस्ट्रिक्शन रिमूव कर दिया गया. Gradually, dear students, that restriction was removed. So Quota was abolished. Quota was abolished. Quota was abolished. Understood, not understood, dear students? Quota was abolished. That is basically quantitative restriction were peeled off. Some of the changes, और भी बदलाव हुए थे जो हम लोग मटेरियल से बात भी करने वाले हैं, बट ये कुछ बदलाव हैं जिनके बारे में मैंने आपको बताया. चलिए बुक पर चलते हैं. लेट्स मूव ऑन टू द बुक देन. हियर इट इज. As I told you, na, see, the seeds of early liberalization. Actual liberalization took place in 1990s, but change started taking place around 1985, is what I have told you. And reforms were sown during the 1980s, especially after 1985. Very important. In early 1980s, conservation and a few structural reforms. These initiatives spanning 81 to 1989 practically referred as early liberalization. So if somebody asks you in MCQ, period of early liberalization, so remember it's 1981 to 1989. Period of early liberalization. 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 It's called period of early liberalization. Dear students, is that clear? Yes, sir. In fact, see, we are specifically aimed at changing the prevailing thrust on inward-oriented trade and investment practices. In fact, this liberalization is often referred to as reforms by stealth to denote its ad hoc and not widely publicized nature. Sir, what is ad hoc? Ad hoc means it is a temporary measure. It was not permanent. It was temporary. This is why it is called reforms by stealth. Stealth का मतलब छुपके धीमे धीमे, which was not very popular. Reforms by stealth. So very important. This 81 to 89 liberalization is also called reforms by stealth. Early reform of 1980s, as I told you, broadly covered three areas: industry, trade, and tax. Very important. So early reforms of 80s covered mainly three areas: industry, trade, tax. I repeat, industry, trade, tax. So early reform of 1980s basically covered three main areas: industry, trade, taxes. Industry, trade, taxes. Industry, trade, taxes. The prominent industrial policy initiatives during this period directed towards removing constraints on growth and creating a more dynamic industrial environment where, see, as I told you, delicensing was done. So in some businesses, no more license was required. So delicensing means, write it down everybody, write it down everybody. Delicensing means license not needed for some businesses. Delicensing means licenses not needed for some businesses. Delicensing means licenses not needed, you see, for some businesses. Licenses not needed for some businesses. Licenses not needed for some businesses. Licenses not needed for some businesses. Licenses were not needed for some of the businesses. Remember this, everyone. Right? So in 1985, Delicensing of 25 broad categories of industries was done. This was later extended to many others. This was later extended to many others. So see, this delicensing was extended to many others. A very good point. This delicensing was extended to many others. This delicensing was extended to many others. The facility of broadbanding, as I had told you, जो मैंने आप लोग को लिखवा भी रखा है, was accorded for industry groups to allow flexibility and rapid changes in their product mix. Understood? Where I gave you that example कि अगर आप related product बना रहे हो तो आपको लाइसेंस का दरकार नहीं है. मतलब अगर आप ऑलरेडी ट्रक का काम कर रहे हो, ट्रक बनाने का, तो the technology behind making car is almost the same as behind truck. Almost. I didn't say 100%. So you don't need to obtain two different licenses, one for truck manufacturer and the other for car manufacturer. You can use the same license. Right, sir. To relax the hold of licensing and restriction on MRTP firms. Sir, what is MRTP? Monopolistic and restrictive trade practices. Write down. Monopolistic. This has been abolished now. Abhi Competition Act आ चुका है. What is MRTP? It was the old law, monopolistic and restrictive. What does it state? What does it state? What does it state? So friends, MRTP, Monopolistic and Restrictive Trade Practices Act tells us that nobody, please remember and listen carefully, that nobody should become a monopoly. As if you become a monopoly, you will exploit people. अगर आप मोनोपोली बन जाएंगे तो आप लोगों को एक्सप्लॉइट करेंगे. इस लॉ के अंतर्गत, अंडर दिस लॉ, you could not expand if your assets was above 20 crores. I had told you this. ये मैंने आपको बता दिया है. अगर आप 20 करोड़ तक का असेट रख रखे हो बिजनेस में, उसके बियॉन्ड आप एक्सपैंड नहीं कर सकते. नहीं अलाउड है. क्या बोला? नहीं अलाउड है. और 20 करोड़. In 1985-86, the asset limit which was subject to MRT regulation changed from 20 crore to 100 crore, as I had mentioned you, जो मैंने आप लोगों को बता दिया था. The multi-point excise duties were converted into a mod VAT, which significantly reduced taxation on input and associated distortion. So basically, there was multi-point excise duties. So product is manufactured X. It is the raw material. If from X it is converted to Y and then from Y it is converted to Z, so each stage was considered as manufacture and excise duty was imposed on each stage. But later on, बाद में ये नियम बदलकर हो गया कि लास्ट फाइनल प्रोडक्ट के मैन्युफैक्चर पर ही केवल टैक्स लगेगा. एक्साइज ड्यूटी इज ओनली चार्जेबल ऑन द मैन्युफैक्चर एंड सेल ऑफ फाइनल प्रोडक्ट. सेल में वैट और जीएसटी अब आ गया है और मैन्युफैक्चर पे एक्साइज ड्यूटी था. अंडरस्टूड? नॉट अंडरस्टूड? सो बेसिकली टैक्सेस वेर रिड्यूस्ड. इस पॉइंट को सिंपल में समझना है. यू कैन कंसिडर इट एज टैक्सेस वेर रिड्यूस्ड. बेसिक मीनिंग खत्म. राइट? एंड फ्रेंड्स, गेस व्हाट? SEBI was established. SEBI was very important because that time lot of stock market scams like Harshad Mehta scam and lot of scams were taking place in the stock exchange. So there was a need for body like Securities Exchange Board of India, which would, prevent such scams from taking place, which will regulate the stock exchanges. So officially SEBI was basically started working from 1991-92, but it was established on April 12, 1988. So what is the work of SEBI? To regulate stock exchanges. There are multiple functions. एक function बताना गलत होगा, but to keep it simple, to regulate the business in stock exchanges. To regulate the business in stock exchanges. It is the simple language. To regulate the businesses in stock exchanges. Understood, not understood? Come on, students. To regulate the business in stock exchanges. Open general license list was steadily expanded. The number of capital good items included in OGL list expanded steadily, reaching 1329 in April 1990. Open general license means कुछ कैपिटल गुड्स को बनाने के लिए पहले लाइसेंस लगता था और कुछ के लिए नहीं लगता था. फॉर दोज जिसके लिए लाइसेंस नहीं लगता था वो ओपन जनरल लाइसेंस लिस्ट में आते थे. So basically for which again for those capital goods, for capital goods मतलब मशीनरी जिसके लिए लाइसेंस का रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं था, जिसके लिए लाइसेंस का रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं था, for which license requirement was not existing. For which license requirement was not existing. Several export incentives were introduced and expanded. Several export incentives were introduced and expanded. The exchange rate was set at a realistic level, which helped expand exports and in turn reduced pressure on foreign exchange needed for imports. So exchange rate was set at a realistic level, which helped expand exports and in turn reduce pressure on foreign exchange needed for imports. I told you exchange exports was promoted. Exports को boost दिया जा रहा था. सर कैसे? ये देखिए, rupee was depreciated. Tell me, ये बात आप लोगों को बताया गया है नहीं बताया गया? You all tell me whether this was told to you or not. Come on, guys. By 30%. Again, told to you all. Informed to you all. Huh? And taxes were reduced because people started evading taxes. Around 1981, you won't believe, the tax rate climbed to around 90%. Around. इमेजिन, मतलब अगर मैं 100 रुपए कमा रहा हूं तो 90 रुपए मैं सरकार को दे दूं. मतलब मैं 12 महीना अगर काम कर रहा हूं तो लगभग 11 साढ़े 11 महीना मैं सरकार को पैसे देने के लिए काम कर रहा हूं. It became so tough. So 1986, the government realized this and eventually reduced. I told you, tariffs and taxes were reduced. I told you, tariffs and taxes were reduced. So remember, the liberalization in 1980s, that is from the period of 81 to 89, was not successful, but it laid the foundation for 1990 to come. Served as the necessary foundation for more organized reforms of 1990s. Sir, what was the difference between 81 to 90 and 91 and beyond? See, the main reason was planning. The 1991 phase and the phase beyond 1991 was very structurally and carefully planned. Was very structurally and carefully planned. Was very structurally and carefully planned. On the other hand, this 81-90 phase was not that systematic or structured. Was not that systematic or structured. Understood, not understood, everyone? Friends, if it is clear, then please tell me yes or no. Very good. Then, dear students, we talk about the economic reforms of 91. Economic reforms of 91. Very, very important. Let's talk about it now. Let's talk about it now. India embarked, see, India embarked on a bold set of reforms in 1991 under the Narasimha Rao government. So, which was the government? Narasimha Rao government. Why was there a need for 1991 reforms? A very important question which I think we should discuss. Very important. Why was there a need for 91 reforms? Let's write it down. Let's try and understand. Why was there 91 में जो इतने सारे बदलाव आए, इसका क्या जरूरत पड़ गया था? आंसर, सबसे पहला बात, द फर्स्ट पॉइंट वाज इंडिया वाज इन अ ह्यूज फिस्कल डेफिसिट. फिस्कल डेफिसिट ह्यूज. सर व्हाट इज फिस्कल डेफिसिट? सिंपल भाषा में खत्म करो, गवर्नमेंट बोरोइंग्स. फिस्कल डेफिसिट इज नथिंग बट गवर्नमेंट बोरोइंग्स. तो गवर्नमेंट की बोरोइंग्स बाकी कंट्रीज से, आईएमएफ से, वर्ल्ड बैंक से ऑलरेडी बहुत ज्यादा हो चुका था. नंबर टू, राइजिंग ऑयल प्राइसेस. इतना ज्यादा ऑयल का दाम बढ़ गया था, इंडिया हैड हार्डली मनी फॉर 2 वीक्स ऑफ ऑयल. इतना समझ लो आप, 2 हफ्ते का तेल इंपोर्ट करने लायक केवल इंडिया में पैसा बचा था. आप ये समझ लो कि कितना पुअर स्टेटस था. आपको इससे अंदाजा लग जाएगा. So the oil prices were rising. So dear students, the oil prices were rising. Third point, third point. First of all, India had little money to import. First problem. First problem. India had little money to import. And to the contrary, USSR disintegrated. किसको पता है यूएसएसआर क्या होता है? यूएसएसआर क्या है और यूएसएसआर के डिसइंटीग्रेशन से इंडियन इकोनॉमी को कैसे फर्क पड़ा? कोई बताएगा मुझे? कैन एनीबडी टेल मी? यस, आई विल टेल यू. फ्रेंड्स वेट, आई विल टेल यू. मैं बताता हूं आप लोगों को हुआ क्या आखिर में. असल में हुआ क्या मैं आपको अब बताता हूं. देखिए हुआ क्या. यूएसएसआर फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल स्टैंड्स फॉर यूनियन ऑफ सोवियत सोशलिस्ट रिपब्लिक्स. It was basically formed after 1917, that is the Russian Revolution, which had around 17 countries in total. It was basically a mixture of 17 countries. Sir, what 17 countries? Sir, कौन सी 17 countries? Russia, Azerbaijan, today's Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Georgia, and so many others. Dot 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 dot. So, sir, यूएसएसआर का डिसइंटीग्रेट होना इंडिया के लिए कैसे मुसीबत बना? इसका तो कोई लॉजिक हमें समझ में नहीं आ रहा. भाई ऐसा है, आपको बात समझना पड़ेगा. असल में बात ऐसा है, जब यूएसएसआर डिसइंटीग्रेट हुआ, यूएसएसआर में इंडिया बहुत एक्सपोर्ट्स करता था. इट वाज अ मेजर एक्सपोर्ट हब ऑफ इंडिया. मेजर एक्सपोर्ट हब ऑफ इंडिया. यूएसएसआर वाज बेसिकली द मेजर एक्सपोर्ट हब ऑफ इंडिया. इंडिया का मेजॉरिटी जो एक्सपोर्ट था वो यूएसएसआर जाता था. होने क्या लग गया दोस्तों? what started happening dear students what started happening dear students was, since majority of the exports of India went to USSR, now USSR got disintegrated, तो अब इंडिया का एक्सपोर्ट्स कम हो गया. तो एक तरह से आप ये देखिए, इंपोर्ट्स का जो खर्चा है हमारा, the expenses for imports is rising, and to the contrary the revenues from export is falling. This increased the trouble further for India, and hence there was a need for 1991 reforms. Understood, not understood? Acha, tech support, can you hear me? Hello, tech support. Hello, tech support. Okay. So friends, so friends, let's continue our discussion. Is so far so good? Yes, sir. Just a moment, students. Hello, tech support. Hello. Excuse me, tech support. Just hello. हाँ, एक्चुअली स्टूडेंट्स के मैसेजेस या क्वेरीज डिस्प्ले नहीं हो रहे हैं. प्लीज चेक इनटू इट. इट्स नॉट गेटिंग अपडेटेड. Students' queries and students' replies for the last 2 to 3 minutes. Please check. Okay, please check. Thank you. Just 1 minute, students. Actually, your queries from last 2 3 minutes are not visible. So just wait for 2 to 3 minutes and then I'll continue my lecture. Okay, okay. Thank you. I'll do that. No problem. Okay. Okay, it's fine. Okay. Okay, let's go. So, dear students, let me sum up that why was there a need for 1991 reform. See, what came into the 1991 reforms, जो 1991 में बदलाव आए थे, वो क्या थे? What were such changes that I will discuss. But before that, we need to understand, dear students, why was there a need for change? So, first of all, friends, India was going through a huge fiscal deficit. Sir, what is the meaning of fiscal deficit? Dear students, fiscal deficit means huge government borrowings. Dear students, fiscal deficit means huge government borrowings. Okay. Oil prices were rising and India used to import oil. Sir, why oil prices were rising? Can anybody tell me? क्या मुझे कोई बताएगा कि ऑयल प्राइसेस क्यों बढ़ रहे थे? कैन एनीवन टेल मी, डियर स्टूडेंट्स, व्हाई ऑयल प्राइसेस वर राइजिंग? Okay, I'll answer this question as well. See, we are knowing about Indian economy now, so let's know about it in details. So let's see. As far as this rising oil prices is concerned, the main reason of rising oil prices in 1991 was, I can answer it, it was Gulf War. Gulf War. So basically, what was Gulf War? You may ask me. आप लोग मेरे से पूछ सकते हो कि सर गल्फ वॉर क्या था, थोड़ा सा बताइए. देखिए, गल्फ वॉर का अर्थ था, एवरीबडी, गल्फ वॉर का अर्थ था बेसिकली अ वॉर बिटवीन टू मेजर ऑयल पावर्स. गल्फ वॉर बेसिकली वाज अ वॉर between two major oil powers, dear students. Sir, what were the two powers? Basically, you could say it was around Iran and Kuwait. So there was a war between them. And since both were, key exporters of oil, so now every time there is a war, जब भी कोई जंग होगा तो उसके लिए पैसे खर्चे होते हैं. There is a money spent on it, and for that, my dear students, they had to increase the oil prices. As a result of which, Indian economy was severely injured. Sir, why this? Sir, why so? Friends, Indian economy was severely injured because we were already under a lot of debt. The rise in such oil prices का दाम बढ़ना उल्टा हमारे लिए और खराब था. It was really sad for us. Acha, sir, we got it. USSR disintegration, we understood. So, friends, these were some of the reasons. Now, let's explore institute's material point by point so that we do not skip any point. Okay, let's see. As I had told you, the fiscal initiatives enhanced economic growth in 1980s saw the government revenue expenditure consistently exceeding receipts. I told you the fiscal deficit was financed by external debt. I told you जो डेफिसिट है, अगर आपने जितना कमाया, if from what you have earned you have spent more than what you have earned, अगर आपने खर्च ज्यादा कर दिए जितना आपने कमाया उससे, तो आप लोग अग्री करना पड़ेगा आप लोगों को. तो ऑफ कोर्स वेयर डिड द मनी कम फ्रॉम? ऑफ कोर्स वेयर डिड द मनी कम फ्रॉम? ऑफ कोर्स द मनी केम फ्रॉम डेट. मनी कहां से आया? मनी डेट से आया, उधार से आया. सो सच वाज द ट्रबल. Second point, persistent huge deficit led to swelling public debt. Sir, what is swelling public debt? मैंने जो आपको बताया ना कि debt, that government, हमारी सरकारें, our government was not only taking debt from outside, but that was taking from our public as well. Public debt का मतलब वो पैसे जो पब्लिक दे रही थी, वो पैसे जो पब्लिक दे रही थी सरकार को उधार के तौर पर. So swelling, increasing. So basically what you can see is that government is completely under trouble now, or our country is completely under debt burden. The correct word should be debt trap. Please write down here. The secret word here is debt trap, because see, we are preparing for MCQs. So keywords are very important for us. See, the surge in oil prices. I told you, I have explained you about the Gulf War, 1990s. Yes, sir. And our foreign exchange reserves were so low. Just see, we did not have money to buy 2 weeks of imports. मतलब 2 हफ्ते का imports हम लोग finance कर पाए, इतनी हमारी जो capacity थी वो बच गई थी. Our capacity reduced such that we could merely afford 2 weeks of imports, dear students. Tightening of import restrictions to muster forex for essential imports resulted in reduction in industrial output. See, what the government was trying to do was reduce imports. But every time you try to reduce imports, see, imports is never only for finished goods. When I say imports, imports, my dear students, means two things, both raw materials and finished goods. Government was trying to reduce imports. So by reducing finished goods, along with that raw material imports also reduced. इसकी वजह से क्या हुआ? अगर raw materials कम import होंगे, it means what? It means the output, the industrial output, the overall manufacturing by industries is going to fall, dear students. Yes or no? Yes, sir. And dear students, to remind you of the timeline, let me show this to you again. Let me show this to you again. These are the phases of our India's journey. The first phase is when we are talking about, let's say, 1757, after the Battle of Plassey has been won by the British, of course, with the French. 1947. Between this, in 1858, the English East India Company rules ends, and along with this, the British government comes into India. This was because of revolt of 1857. More or less, our economy was literally collapsed in this situation or in this tenure. Beyond this, dear students, 1991, we spoke about the Nehruvian model. We spoke about the Nehruvian model, which was basically an economy, mixed economy with a strong center, which is basically a strong government. कि economy mixed रहेगी but government strong रहेगा काफी. Next thing was, friends, then we spoke about, acha, I have an MCQ question for you. Let's see you are able to answer this or not. Let me ask you this question. State the period. I will not help you. State the period, also called as, I am not helping you. State the period also called as stealth liberalization. Stealth liberalization. State the period also called as Stealth liberalization. Let me ask you this question, okay? Here is the time period 1757 to 1857. B, 1991 to 2009. C, 1981 to 1989. And D, 1990 to 1995. Let's see who is able to answer correctly. Stealth liberalization. Come on, everybody. Let's see who has been listening to the lecture consistently. अभी पता लग जाएगा. Perfect. So first correct answer is given by Partho, followed by Karthik, followed by Nishi, followed by Anusha. And the good thing is everybody has given the perfect answer, correct answer. Yes, stealth liberalization is this period. Stealth का मतलब छुपके छुपके. One which was in the silent mode, which was basically laying a foundation for the upcoming 91 bigger reforms. Okay, fantastic. Okay, fantastic. All right, great. So now, dear students, I think we should proceed further. Okay. So see, India had to depend on external borrowing from, as I told you, IMF, which in turn put forth stringent conditions. Okay. So how many conditions? Let me ask you this question. Two MCQs. Again, I ask you. Here only, let me ask you this two MCQs. Number one, who was the finance minister of our country during the 91 period, first of all? And number two, what were the conditions imposed on the respective finance minister by the IMF and World Bank? What were the conditions imposed by IMF and World Bank? Let's see who has been listening to the lecture. Very, very good. Very, very good. So here it is, dear students. Here it is, dear students. Finance Minister 91. Finance Minister in 91 was the person who later on goes on to become our Prime Minister as well. It was Dr. Manmohan Singh ji. Okay. A brilliant economist in his own right, Dr. Manmohan Singh. And later on, later on, as far as conditions imposed by IMF and World Bank were concerned, there are three conditions that institutions had imposed. See, IMF and World Bank were not wrong. आप किसी से बार बार पैसा ले रहे हो, आपका मतलब यहाँ पे इंडिया है. अब इंडिया बार बार विदेशों से पैसा ले रहा है और पैसा नहीं चुका पा रहा है, तो सामने वाला तो भाई पूछेगा ना कि तुम्हारी क्या स्ट्रेटेजी है, तुम कैसे मेरा पैसा चुकाओगे, क्योंकि तुम आए दिन हमसे पैसे लेते चले जा रहे हो. कोई तो आपका बेसिस होना चाहिए ना. देयर हैज टू बी some basis behind you taking loan from me. You should have some action plan on the basis of which you are going to repay my loan. आप खाली पैसे लेने आ जा रहे हो. So IMF and World Bank were right in their own right, and they imposed the three conditions of L, P, and G, of course, which is liberalization, privatization, and yes, globalization. These were the three conditions that were imposed. Correct, Nancy? Mr. Rajendra, very good, correct answer. Miss Tambeshwari, correct answer, very good. Mr. Anuj, no. Okay. And finally, the fragile political situation along with the crisis in the economic front ballooned into what may be called as crisis of confidence. You know, because there were a lot of political turmoil taking place. This period of around 88 to 91, you know, was characterized by a lot of political turmoil. You are seeing Congress coming, BJP going, BJP coming, Congress going. So there was a lot of political turmoil, you know, vote of no confidence being passed. And remember that if a country is not politically stable, it cannot be economically stable. You see, na, this countries like Nepal, Bhutan, etc. You know, they are changing their kings and all those prime ministers 10 to 15 times in the last 15 years. If you do this kind of practice, how do you expect your economy to improve? You see, in Pakistan till date, none of the none of the prime ministers have been able to serve a full 5-year term. If a nation is characterized by political instability, it will definitely be backed by economic instability, definitely, or followed by. Okay, sir, we have understood so far. Now, sir, how was 1991 decade different from 81 or pre-1991 decade? Let me create for you a timeline again. Let's put 1991 here. Let's put pre-1991 here. And let's put post-1991 here. So if you try to understand the scenario, the change was such that during this pre-1991 phase, you see, we were seeing the socialist model taking place. Socialist model was taking place. जहां पे हो क्या रहा था, जहां पे basically, yes, we were saying that India is a mixed economy. No doubt, no doubt. We were saying India was a mixed economy, but you know what? But with a strong center. Strong center. Strong center means strong central government. Strong center means a strong central government. That was the socialist model, dear students. And gradually, when we shift further, it was pre-91. Post 1991, it was more of a actual mixed economy with private sector gaining more freedom. It was really a mixed economy with more freedom to private sector, with more freedom to private sector, with more freedom to private, with more freedom to private sector. And friends, let me pause for a minute and remind you that to be successful in the world of macroeconomics, which has been introduced for the first time in CA Foundation syllabus, I have only one mantra, which is divided in 2 steps for success in economics. Let me remind you again and again. I have told this hundreds of times. I am telling again. First one is, do all the classes that we are conducting. Do all the classes diligently, religiously. The first duty you all have. And then, friends, the second step is read ICAI study material carefully. Read ICAI study material carefully. The book, I repeat, has been beautifully designed. If you read it carefully, you know, back when I became a chartered accountant, the book was, having very little use of colors and charts and diagrams. That was the problem that I faced when I was reading the material. But today the book has changed like, anything. So please trust this material. This is more than enough. I repeat, more than enough. The only condition is you must read each and every word out of this material. And the third step is, if you look at the respective institute's material, you see after each chapter, they have put summary notes. The mistakes you students do is you don't read this. If you do this, then you can very well be rest assured that आपका मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स में तो जर्नी एकदम मजेदार होने वाला है, आपके मार्क्स बढ़िया आने वाले हैं, इसमें 1 रुपए का शक नहीं है. I don't really doubt that. Okay, all right, sir. So friends, let's go back to the material and see what we were discussing. Okay, so this 91 model change also I have discussed. This entire paragraph, collapse of the Soviet Union, USSR, I have already discussed. So don't tell me कि sir पता नहीं है. USSR is Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, जिसकी वजह से इंडिया का एक्सपोर्ट्स गिरा, because of which Indian exports fell. So the reforms, that is the reforms of the 1991 or beyond 1991, was popularly known as LPNG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. Sir, can you revise for us the meaning of these three? क्योंकि आपने लास्ट डे बताया था, आज हम लोग भूल चुके हैं इसे. ओके, चलिए मैं आपको रिवाइज करवा देता हूं, बट यू शुड नॉट फॉरगेट. फ्रेंड्स, इन सिंपल लैंग्वेज, लिबरलाइजेशन का मतलब है आजादी, फ्रीडम. फ्रीडम टू होम, किसको आजादी सर? private sector. You means the government is imposing constant requirement of licenses, then this and that and that. So a lot of license and other requirements are there. So the number one point is liberalization seeks to remove these licensing requirements. Liberalization seeks to remove this licensing requirements, such stringent rules where a bank could not have multiple branches. Privatization, you see, privatization basically implied the transfer of some of the, listen to my language carefully, मैंने कहा कुछ, some, to transfer of some of the public sector units in the hands of private sector. मतलब कुछ लॉस मेकिंग गवर्नमेंट बिजनेसेस को प्राइवेट सेक्टर को बेचना. कुछ एग्जांपल देंगे सर इसका? पालको, भारत एल्यूमिनियम कंपनी. Bharat Aluminium Company was one of the factories, or you could say the businesses of government that was privatized. And finally, globalization. Dear students, globalization means integrating the domestic economy with the world economy. मतलब सरल भाषा में वर्ल्ड के साथ रिलेशन एस्टेब्लिश करना, टू अलाउ इंपोर्ट एंड एक्सपोर्ट्स, टू अलाउ इनफ्लो ऑफ कैपिटल, टू अलाउ आउटफ्लो ऑफ कैपिटल, टू अलाउ एफडीआई, टू अलाउ एफपीआई. Acha, don't tell me, sir, what is FDI, FPI? We don't know. In the earlier chapters, in international trade, we have done one unit named as foreign trade. So you cannot tell me कि sir पता नहीं है. खराब बात हो जाएगा वो. So friends, there were two major objectives of this LPG. Number one, reorientation of the economy from a central directed and highly controlled. I told you, no, it was highly controlled, to a market friendly economy. So number one goal was this, and number two was to stabilize the fiscal deficit situation. Fiscal deficit basically is situation of excess government borrowings. Fiscal deficit is a situation of excessive government borrowings, and I am 100% sure in class 12 you have studied. If you had economics, you have studied fiscal deficit. The name of the chapter in class 12 was balance of payment and government budget. I am 100% sure you have studied it under that chapter. Yes, sir. So now let me move on. The policy paradigm focused on shifting from central directed to market direction. Very important. I will write it here. The focus of LPG was, everybody will write it down along with me. The focus of LPG was to change from highly controlled economy slash highly controlled economy slash social economy to market oriented, market friendly economy, to market oriented slash market friendly economy, market oriented slash market friendly economy. Dear students, yes or no? Come on. Yes. So now on the request received from all, what I am doing is, I am here in the class only. I am not taking any break. For the next 5 minutes, I will be taking your doubts. I will not be speaking anything. मैं कुछ नहीं बोलने वाला अपनी तरफ से नया. आप लोग के जो doubts आएंगे मैं उसका जवाब देने वाला हूँ. So please start throwing your doubts and then we shall move forward. Come on. Let's see the first doubt. Very good. Right, Hemant, correct answer. Yes, Karthik, you are correct. Okay, Partho, very good. Waiting for the questions. Come on. And those who need to drink water, they need a 5 minutes break. Please do that. And others, please ask the question. I am here only. Sir, what is the easy way to revise economic portions? I told you, na, the summary at the back of institute material. Swelling public debt. What is the meaning of swelling public debt? Anushka is asking. Anushka, as I had told, swelling का मतलब होता है बढ़ना. Swelling public debt means increasing public debt. जो गवर्नमेंट का पब्लिक से उधार बढ़ रहा था, उसे स्वेलिंग पब्लिक डेट कहते हैं. इंक्रीजिंग पब्लिक डेट. इंक्रीजिंग पब्लिक डेट. No, Hemant, it is not required. Calculus is not needed for MPC, etc. No, MPC is just change in consumption by change in income. MPS is just change in savings by change in income. आपको कौन बोला कैलकुलस पढ़ने के लिए? Not needed. बिल्कुल जरूरत नहीं है. हाँ, to muster forex. Very important. A good question asked by Nancy. So Nancy, to muster forex means to collect foreign exchange, to accumulate foreign exchange, gather foreign exchange. क्योंकि आपके पास जितना फॉरेन एक्सचेंज होगा उतना ज्यादा आपकी कंट्री की करेंसी का वैल्यू होगा. तो टू अक्यूमुलेट फॉरेन एक्सचेंज, फॉरेन करेंसी बेसिकली, नॉट एक्सचेंज, फॉरेन करेंसी, टू बी ऑनेस्ट. Delicensing means Ashinka, to remove the licenses requirement from some of the businesses. मतलब अब गवर्नमेंट से लाइसेंस नहीं लेना होगा. नेक्स्ट डियर स्टूडेंट्स, नेक्स्ट डाउट प्लीज. आप लोग इतने सारे हो फिर भी डाउट्स इतना कम आ रहा है. क्या तो आप ध्यान नहीं दे रहे या मैं बहुत ही अच्छा पढ़ा दे रहा हूं? वेरी गुड. ओके. यस. यस. सो प्राइवेटाइजेशन इज करेक्ट. बेसिकली ट्रांसफरिंग ऑफ ओनरशिप. आप मान लीजिए एक बिजनेस है जो अभी मेजोरिटी स्टेक जहां पे मान लीजिए गवर्नमेंट का है 51% और ग्रेटर, ऐसा मान के चलिए ना. क्या है, अगर किसी गवर्नमेंट बिजनेसेस में, इफ इन गवर्नमेंट बिजनेसेस माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स, more than 51%, then only it is government business. If more than 51% is owned by the government, now dear students, if some part of it, 20%, 30%, etc., is transferred to some private sector or general public, that my dear students would be termed as privatization. Sir, ये क्यों करना जरूरी है? इसलिए जिससे गवर्नमेंट, बिकॉज समटाइम्स व्हाट हैपेंस इज गवर्नमेंट वेस्ट टू मच मनी इन सम बिजनेसेस. नाउ दिस बिकम्स tough as it is our money which is being wasted, and hence private sector would be able to run it more efficiently. Very good. Very, very good. Okay. Yes, Anuj, we are going to discuss that. All right. So friends, time for doubts is now over. मतलब आप लोग doubts पूछते रहिए. But now I will move into the next head of discussion. Okay. All right. So friends, as I told you, there are two broad classifications of the policies that took place from 91 and beyond. From 91 and beyond. 91 and beyond में जो दोस्तों बदलाव आया ना, उसका दो चीज यहां पर निकल कर आता है. For 91 and beyond, two types of measures were taken. from 91 and beyond. Sir, can you tell us what were the two types of measures? Sir, can you tell us what were the two types of measures? Can you tell us what were the two types of measures? Friends, number one was stabilization measures. Stabilization were short term measures. मतलब छोटे समय में, अगले साल, 2 साल, 3 साल के अंदर जो प्रॉब्लम्स है एडवर्स बीओपी का, इन्फ्लेशन का, उसको कंट्रोल करे. सर, can you give us example? हाँ, I can give you an example. For example, change in the tax rates, change in the bank rate, okay, change in the cash reserve ratio, okay, change in the statutory liquidity ratio. बेसिकली शॉर्ट टर्म बीमारी से फाइट करना, शॉर्ट टर्म परेशानियों से फाइट करना, शॉर्ट टर्म मुसीबतों से फाइट करना. समझ गए आप? यस सर. एंड जब मैं बोल रहा हूं, एंड व्हेन आई से स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स, इट इज लॉन्ग टर्म. जो लंबे समय में बदलाव देखने को मिलेगा, द चेंज दैट यू वुड बी एबल टू सी इन द लॉन्गर फेज ऑफ टाइम, दैट वुड बी कॉल्ड एज स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स व्हिच आर लॉन्ग टर्म and of continuing nature. So let's write it down here. Let's make a note of it. Policy reforms, dear students, can be grouped under two heads. Number one, stabilization, and structural. Friends, the stabilization measures are the one which are basically the short term, तुरंत बदलाव. स्ट्रक्चरल मेजर्स आर द वन जो कि लंबे समय का बदलाव है, जो ग्रेजुअल बदलाव है, उसे कहते हैं स्ट्रक्चरल बदलाव और द स्ट्रक्चरल मेजर्स. इज दैट क्लियर डियर स्टूडेंट्स? Okay, got it. Understood, sir. Understood, sir. Let's now move further. Let's now see the fiscal reforms. The fiscal reforms. Let's talk about the fiscal reforms. The escalating deficit levels rendered the stabilization efforts rather complicated. Bringing in fiscal discipline by reducing fiscal deficit was vital because the crisis was caused by excess demand, surge in imports, and widening of current account deficit. Sir, what is current account deficit? Can you tell us? Yes, of course, I have told you in the past, and I will revise with you again. Current account deficit is basically, friends, simply in very simple language, if I say, where import of goods and services plus unilateral transfers is greater than export of goods and services plus unilateral transfers. Understood? That is the difference. That is the meaning of current account deficit. That is the meaning of current account deficit. So what change, what efforts were done? Let's see. First of all, stable and transparent tax structure. बहुत जोर जोर से taxes आप बदलोगे तो people will be unhappy. So a stable tax structure was introduced. Better tax compliance was ensured. There was a thrust on curbing government expenditure. Curbing means reducing or controlling. बंद करना, reducing or controlling. Sir, because if there is huge government expenditure, तो पैसा हमेशा ज्यादा जा रहा है compared to जो आ रहा है. पैसा आना ज्यादा चाहिए ना, पैसा आना ज्यादा चाहिए ना. Paradigm means huge, remarkable. Remarkable change. Reduction in subsidies and abolition of unnecessary subsidies. What is subsidies? You all know. Jahan government, where government bears some portion of the cost of the goods. Now, if product is really necessary, then okay, government is allotting subsidies. Understood. समझ में आता है. But unnecessary areas में subsidy देने का कोई तुक नहीं बनता है. तो उसको कम करिए. Disinvestment of part of government's equity. I told you, na, disinvestment also means the same thing, almost the same as privatization, selling of government equity. See, investment is buying equity, disinvestment is selling equity of part of government equity holdings in selected public sector undertakings and encouraging private sector participation, which I have already told you. So, sir, our question is, हमारा सवाल है, तो ऐसे क्या क्या बदलाव थे? What were the changes, sir? Can you guide us through them? Yes, definitely. Let me guide you through it. Number one, reduction in control on banks by the RBI in respect of interest rate chargeable on rolls and payable. A very important line I am telling you that you should remember, very important for MCQ examination. From 1991, write it down along with me. The role of Reserve Bank of India. The role of Reserve Bank of India. From 1991, the role of Reserve Bank of India changed from regulator to facilitator. Changed from regulator to facilitator. सर व्हाट इज द मीनिंग? थोड़ा मीनिंग बताएंगे क्या? इसको मैं दूसरे एग्जांपल के थ्रू समझाता हूं. मान लीजिए अगर आपके पेरेंट्स काफी स्ट्रिक्ट है, आप कुछ भी करने का परमिशन मांगो, आपके पेरेंट्स बोलते हैं नहीं करना है, ये नहीं करना है, वो नहीं करना है. दैट इज कॉल्ड रेगुलेटर, जो स्ट्रिक्टली कंट्रोल करे आपको. फैसिलिटेटर का मतलब, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू आस्क योर पेरेंट्स कि क्या हम लोग 2 दिन के लिए घूमने जा सकते हैं, सो योर पेरेंट्स माइट टेल यू ओके, पहले आप पढ़ाई कर लें, डू योर होमवर्क, डू वेल इन योर एग्जाम्स, एंड देन ओके घूमने चले जाना. So see, now they are supporting you, they are facilitating you in achieving your objectives rather than acting as a barrier to your objectives. Yes or no, dear students? That is what I am saying. This is how RBI changed its role. It was like a strict parent before 1991. Then on the government's directions, it changed its role from regulator to a facilitator. As far as behavior with other banks is concerned, we are telling this. Friends, please confirm if so far so good. Yes or no? I'm waiting. I think I have explained it pretty well, but if you have doubt, please ask me. Okay. And I told you now, banks were allowed, you see, opening of new private sector banks and facilitating greater competition among public sector, private sector and foreign banks, and removal of administrative constraint that reduced efficiency. Administrative constraints means unnecessary document requirement. Unnecessary too much document requirements, unnecessary too much interference by the government, all was reduced. Sir, we understood. Reduction in reserve requirements, basically in meaning statutory liquidity ratio and cash reserve ratio, with the recommendations of Narsimham Committee, Report 1991. And you all know what is SLR and CRR. Sir, आप revise करवा दीजिए. Sir, please revise it for us. Okay, but we had done this topic. Okay. See, first of all, CRR and SLR are both rates fixed by RBI. Who has to follow these rates? Commercial banks. Sir, मतलब बताइए. Cash reserve ratio is that portion of total deposits of RBI of the commercial banks, which commercial banks have to maintain in the form of cash with the RBI. कमर्शियल बैंक्स के टोटल डिपॉजिट्स का वो हिस्सा जो कमर्शियल बैंक्स को डिपॉजिट्स के रूप में किसके पास जमा करवाना पड़ता है? बोलो बोलो बोलो. आरबीआई के पास. Then, sir, what is SLR? Statutory liquidity requirement. It is again that portion of total deposits of commercial banks which जो commercial banks खुद के पास भी मेंटेन कर सकते हैं, which commercial banks can maintain with themselves in the form of cash plus other securities like bonds, debentures, gold, etc. सर ये तो पहले हुआ है. Yes. So reserve requirements were reduced. I told you, initially bank branches were not easily allowed. See, it was liberalized. Bank branching licensing policy was liberalized. And freedom was granted to banks in respect of opening or closure of branches. Look at this. देखें आप ये. What else? Prudential norms of accounting. in respect of classification of assets, disclosure of income and provision for bad debts were introduced in tune with Narasimhan Committee recommendation to ensure that books of commercial bank reflect accurate picture. So very important, Narasimhan Committee report, very important. In this thorough portion, we have discussed about Narasimhan Committee report. So Narasimhan Committee report is very important. Write it down in your notes. Come on, everybody must write it down. So whenever exam may institute asks about financial sector reforms, you should remember that Narasimhan Committee report played a major role in this part. Yes or no? Come on, friends. So as far as this financial sector reforms are concerned, let me write down the summary for you all. Okay, the main summary. Financial banking sector reform. First of all, we must remember one committee, Narasimham Committee. Very important here. Very important here. And what else do we need to write? What else do you need to write? Number one is, हाँ, branch policy liberalized bank branches. When I say branch, I mean bank branches. Okay. RBI changed its role from regulator to facilitator. What else, sir? Friends, then there was another change wherein CRR and ratios like SLR were reduced. So these were the three major changes you should remember. Three major changes, dear students, you should remember. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Friends, reforms in capital markets, as I had told, SEBI set up in 88 was given statutory recognition in 92. That's why I had mentioned you this. मैंने आपको आज क्लास में शुरू में ये बता दिया था कि SEBI सेटअप 88 में हो गया था, रिकॉग्नाइज हुआ था 92 में. It was basically formed to regulate the stock exchanges. Okay, sir. What else do we have? The new industrial policy. Industrial policy. Before I talk about the new industrial policy, let's revise about the old industrial policy. Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, IPR 1956, जो गवर्नमेंट ने इंट्रोड्यूस किया था उस समय की इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी रेजोल्यूशन. उसके बाद 91 का पढ़ेंगे और आप लोग मुझे बताइएगा कि आपको क्या बदलाव और क्या अच्छा लगा 91 में मुकाबले 1956 के. यू ऑल टेल मी what you found better in the 91 IPR compared to the 1956 IPR. Okay, that's my question to you all. In IPR 1956, what had happened was government has basically classified three schedules of industries. Government had basically classified three schedules of industries, which was what, sir? Friends, it was schedule A. Friends, it was schedule B. Friends, it was schedule B. And friends, it was schedule C. So what is this schedule A, schedule B, schedule C, sir? इसका क्या मतलब होता है? It was very strict policy. Schedule A comprised of those businesses where private sector was not at all allowed. मतलब प्राइवेट सेक्टर यहाँ पे बिजनेस करने का सोच भी नहीं सकता था. सर, sir, can you give us some example? Of course I can. Of course I can. Sir, please tell us. It would be, डिफेंस, एटॉमिक एनर्जी, रेलवेज, जहां गवर्नमेंट को डर लगता था. डर, बेसिकली डर इज द शॉर्टकट फॉर defense, A for atomic energy, R for railways. ये शॉर्टकट है याद रखने का. फिर स्केड्यूल बी में क्या बिजनेसेस थे? स्केड्यूल बी में जो बिजनेसेस थे, इन दैट अगेन गवर्नमेंट विल डू मेन बिजनेस. Government is the main hero of the movie. Private sector can play an ancillary role, a supporting role. Private sector supporting काम कर सकते हैं. For example, if government is manufacturing fertilizer, then if there is some raw material required for fertilizer, that private sector can sell. Sir, can you tell us, some of the businesses in this sector? MAF. The trick is MAF. Dar MAF. So remember, Dar MAF. Sir, what is MAF now? Mineral, aluminium, fertilizer. So some mineral based businesses, aluminium based businesses, fertilizer based businesses was basically under schedule B, where private sector can play an ancillary role, where private sector can play an ancillary role, where private sector can play an ancillary role. Sir, we do understand this. Sir, हम लोगों को ये बात समझ में आ गया है पूरी तरह से. Very good, everybody. Very good, everybody. Very good, everybody. Sir, schedule C बताएं आप. Schedule C was those businesses other than Schedule A and B where private sector can do business after taking license from the government. Other than Schedule A and Schedule B, other than Schedule A and B, where private sector can do its business. Friends, guess what? Friends, guess what? Wasn't it really strict? Acha, where private sector can do business, wo bhi after taking license from the government. So friends, as I understand, you can clearly see how strict the government then was. I am sure you have understood this with whatever I have told. तो देखते हैं IPR 91 में क्या होता है. उसके पहले if somebody needs to take or write down, please do it, or take a screenshot, please do it. उसके बाद we'll move to what IPR 91 is all about. Abolition का मतलब हटा देना. Sania is asking abolition का मतलब. Abolition means removal, हटा देना. Yes. MAF is mineral aluminium fertilizers. Of course, there were many in Schedule B. I was just giving some examples. Okay? Sir, we understand this. अब इसके बाद आते हैं, देखते हैं नया IPR 91 के बियॉन्ड क्या लेकर आया हमारे लिए. Let's see. The new IPR announced by the government industrial policy on 24th July 91 sought to substantially deregulate industry. Deregulate means remove the restrictions, remove the strict restrictions, remove the strict restrictions, remove the strict restrictions, remove the strict restrictions. The new industrial policy announced by the government sought to substantially remove the restrictions so as to promote growth of a more efficient and competitive economy. जिससे एक better economy भी हम लोग देख सके, so that we can see a more competitive economy, everybody. In order to provide greater competitive stimulus to the domestic industry, a series of reforms were introduced. So lot of changes, dear students, were introduced. बहुत सारे बदलाव थे students जो देखने को मिले. Sir, what were those changes? Please tell us. Of course, I will. The first one was the new policy put an end license Raj. What is license Raj? License requirements. By removing the licensing restriction for all industry except for 18 businesses. But later on, this was reduced to 5. So, आज के date पर, if institute asks you, कि as of today, for how many businesses is license required? Please remember this number 5. 5. Namely, arms and ammunition, which are dangerous, of course. Atomic substances, narcotic drug and hazardous chemical, distillation and brewing of alcohol, cigarette and cigar, as this have severe implication on health, safety and environment. Why this five? Because they have significant influence on our health, our safety, our environment. इन पांच बिजनेसेस को, इन पांच सेक्टर में बिजनेसेस को छोड़ के आप कहीं भी बिजनेस कर सकते हैं, आपको कोई रेगुलेट, आपको कोई कंट्रोल करने वाला नहीं रहेगा. उम्मीद है आपको समझ में आया. फ्रेंड्स, इज दिस क्लियर एवरीवन? कम ऑन डियर स्टूडेंट्स, यस और नो? Yes, sir, it's clear to us. You see, it is written public sector was limited to 8 sectors based on security and strategic grounds. Subsequently, only 2 items remained: railway transport and atomic energy. Only 2 items remained: railway transport and atomic energy. So, public sector was limited to 8. Now, only 2 items are reserved. Reserved. Reserved means reserved for government. Reserved for government, mainly 2 businesses now. Reserved for government, which is the two? Railway and atomic energy. Of course, you know why, as they are of crucial importance. Next, the MRTP Act was restructured and the provisions relating to merger, amalgamation, and takeover were repealed. This has eliminated the need for pre-entry scrutiny of investment decisions and prior approval for large companies for capacity expansion. Simply speaking, अगर मुझे अपने बिजनेस को एक्सपैंड करना है, if I want to expand my business, then I don't need to take number of permissions. There is no need of number of scrutiny and permissions which I have to go through, which was there in the MRTP Act. उल्टा MRTP Act तो अब दोस्तों हट भी चुका है. उल्टा, my dear students, MRTP Act is as it is, no more existing. Next, many goods produced. Next, many goods produced by small scale businesses. But before this, let me sum it up for you. Let let us make a note of it, of the new industrial policy. अभी तक जो अपने सीख पाए हैं, whatever we have learned so far, put the heading New Industrial Policy 1991. Let's shorten it up a little bit. New Industrial Policy 1991. So friends, as per the new policy, number one, licensing abolished for most businesses, abolition of licensing requirement, except for 5 businesses. You all know what the 5 businesses are: alcohol brewing, right? Defense, hazardous chemicals, if you deal with hazardous chemicals, then what else? This, then there is this cigarettes related. Yes or no? Yes, sir. You see here, it's written in the first point only: arms, ammunitions, atomic substances. Right, sir? So atomic substances. This is the first point that we have understood. Please note it down, everybody. Please note it down, everybody. Okay, it's clear. Next, everybody, next, everyone. The second point was 2 businesses or 2 areas, I should say, not businesses, reserved from now on for government. 2 areas reserved for now on for government, from now on for government. What are the 2 areas? Of course, you are correct. Of course, you are correct. One is railways, transport, of course, and other one is atomic energy. These are still reserved for government. मतलब प्राइवेट सेक्टर अभी भी यहां पे तो एंटर नहीं कर सकता, ना ही समझो अभी तक प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लिए. हाँ सर, वी अंडरस्टूड दिस सर. सर, टेल अस समथिंग मोर. There is a lot to study right now. Let's move on to some other points. MRTP we have understood. Acha, one more thing you remember. Small Scale Industries Act around 1959. Some businesses were reserved. कुछ products reserved थे. याद आ रहा आप लोगों को last class? In the last class I had told where production could only be done by small businesses for some products. That was de-reserved. क्यों सर? ऐसा क्यों सर? जिससे large businesses enter कर सके. So small scale industries were again de-reserved to allow large businesses, large scale businesses to enter, and and no restriction on expansion of businesses. Under the MRTP Act, there were a lot of restrictions. No restriction on business expansion. No restriction on business expansion. Huh? No need of scrutiny. Continuous scrutiny not needed. At each step of your business expansion, बार बार आपका चेकअप हो रहा है, ये सही नहीं है, होना नहीं चाहिए, और अब वो हटाया जा रहा था. It was gradually removed as well. Come on, dear students, are you with me so far? Yes. Please note it down or take a screenshot, whatever you like to do. See, friends, I am trying as much as possible to touch each and every point. Still, it is very much possible, I admit, that one or two points may escape my attention. Please, you have to read it. Pre-entry scrutiny of investment. Nancy is asking, what is the meaning of pre-entry scrutiny of investment? Basically, Nancy, it means that before you enter a particular industry, some scrutiny is done of where you are investing, of what business you are investing. Now, such requirements or such restrictions were eased out. थोड़ा कम हो गया था वैसा स्क्रूटिनी का झंझट, मुश्किल, मुसीबत. SSI means small scale industries, small scale businesses. Partho, SSI is small scale industries. We had discussed in the last class, right? SSI small scale industries. तो कुछ businesses, Partho is asking what is SSI? Partho, कुछ businesses जो small sectors के लिए reserved थे, अब उनको हटाकर large scale के लिए भी खोल दिया गया था. Initially the idea in the 1960s was कि small scale businesses survive कैसे करेंगे if large scale enter every business. So it was that some products were reserved. कुछ products reserve कर दिए गए थे small scale businesses के लिए. But gradually it was found out that small scale businesses would not be able to compete and would not be able to scale up. So the idea was to now allow both small scale and large scale businesses to operate. That is what the idea came into being. Friends, is that clear? Yes or no? Come on, friends. Yes or no? Come on, yes or no, friends? Scrutiny means checking. रंजीत इज आस्किंग सर एसएसआई वाला लास्ट डे वाला बता दीजिए. ओके रंजीत, एसएसआई वाला जो एक्ट है, स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्रीज एक्ट, ये बेसिकली आया था 1960s के टाइम पे. इट केम ड्यूरिंग द टाइम ऑफ 1960s, अकॉर्डिंग टू विच सम ऑफ द बिजनेसेस वेर रिजर्व्ड फॉर स्मॉल बिजनेसेस ओनली. कि कुछ प्रोडक्ट्स ऐसे हैं जो स्मॉल बिजनेसेस ही बनाएंगे. अब वो रिक्वायरमेंट हटा दिया गया था 91 के बियॉन्ड. ओके, वेरी गुड सर. What else change? What changes were made, sir, apart from this? You see, the policy ended the public sector monopoly in many cases. Initially, public sector had no competition. क्यों? क्योंकि private sector was not allowed in the business which public sector was doing. अब वो लोग को हटा दिया गया था. अब it was completely allowed. अब इन लोगों को हटा दिया गया था. Foreign investments was liberalized. मतलब foreign investments allow कर दिया गया था. Restrictions remove कर दिए गए थे. Automatic approval was introduced for foreign direct investments up to 50%, 51, which was later extended, बढ़ा भी था, to nearly all industries except reserve ones. FDI is prohibited only in 4 sectors. Very important. कहाँ FDI allowed नहीं है? कहाँ FDI allowed नहीं है? Where is FDI not allowed? Means foreign sector, foreign investors, India में किन businesses में स्टार्ट करने के लिए या एग्जिस्टिंग बिजनेसेस में इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर सकते? तो दोज आर फोर दोस्तों, दोज आर फोर एवरीबॉडी. Number one is retail trade. Number one is retail trade. Number two is atomic energy. Number one is retail trade. Number two is atomic energy. Number three is lottery business. And number four is betting and gambling. Number four is betting and gambling. So friends, it's again, I'll repeat, retail trade, atomic energy, lottery business, betting and gambling. I repeat, retail trade, atomic energy, lottery business, betting and gambling. Again, I repeat, retail trade, atomic energy, lottery business, and the fourth one is betting and gambling. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Is this clear, dears? Okay. Now, one of our friends asked open general license. OGL is open general license. First of all, write it down. What is OGL? Open general license. Okay. Open general license. Okay. Now, external trade. See, external trade means foreign trade. External trade means foreign trade. Import and export we are talking about was further liberalized. By substituting the positive list approach of listing license-free items on the OGL list with the negative list approach. So basically, initially what was there? A very interesting thing is written here. पहले हुआ करता था पॉजिटिव लिस्ट. पॉजिटिव लिस्ट अप्रोच का मतलब था कि कुछ सिलेक्टेड आइटम्स जो विदेशों से हम खरीदना या बेचना कर सकते थे, पॉजिटिव लिस्ट में वो लिखा रहता था. ठीक है. सो इनिशियली पॉजिटिव लिस्ट कंटेन कि अब सारे आइटम्स का इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट अलाउड है. नाउ इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ ऑल द आइटम्स इज अलाउड. नाउ डियर स्टूडेंट्स, import export of reasonably all the items is allowed apart from selected items. I repeat, apart from selected items, import and export of all the items is now allowed. That is what is the concept that we are speaking about. The policy did away with import licensing on all but a handful of goods. So if you want to import for certain products, then for certain products only you needed license. The consumer goods which remained under licensing was made free 10 years later. So for importing consumer goods, license as such was not needed. I repeat, देखो दो तरीके के goods होते हैं. One is foreign capital goods like machinery, and one is consumer goods. Capital goods are basically used in further production. To the contrary, consumer goods are used in consumption. So capital goods had some requirement of licensing if you wanted to import them from outside, but consumer goods, no such requirement was there. Today, see, today, except for a handful of goods, is allowed on health, environmental, safety grounds, and few others such as edible oil, fertilizer, all goods can be imported. So you can import anything apart from some oil, fertilizer, and petroleum products. Apart from some oil, fertilizer, and petroleum products. Apart from that, you can almost import anything that you want. You can almost import anything that you want. Next, moving on. In 1990-91, the highest tariff rate, imagine, was 355%. This was brought down to 85%, imagine, and then to 15%, and then to 10%. But there are some exceptions, like automobile import still at 100%. So if you want to import certain automobiles, आज भी आपको सरकार को 100% टैक्स जमा देना पड़ता है. आज भी आपको सरकार को 100% टैक्स जमा देना पड़ता है. And see, rupee was sir, why government is doing this? To protect the automobile industry in our country. हमारे यहाँ के लोगों को बचाने के लिए. हमारे यहाँ के लोगों को बचाने के लिए. Then friends, what do you see? See, rupee was devalued by 18% against dollar. Now you all don't ask me what is devalued. आज के क्लास के शुरुआत में I told the purpose of devaluation is to increase Indian exports so that Indian exports or basically export of Indian goods increase. Why? Because it makes the rupee cheaper. So when the foreigners find rupee to be cheaper, automatically they find Indian goods to be cheaper. अगर रुपया सस्ता है तो ऑफ कोर्स इंडियन कमोडिटी भी सस्ता है ना. Yes sir, we understand that. And guess what? Next point, sir. The disinvestment. Disinvestment means selling of government ownership. 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 The disinvestment of government holdings equity share capital was a very bold step. The hitherto constrained public sector units were provided with greater autonomy in decision making and opportunity for professional management for ensuring reasonable returns. The budgetary support to public sector was progressively reduced. See, very important. The budgetary support to public sector was reduced. Why? Because लॉस मेकिंग बिजनेसेस को गवर्नमेंट कंटिन्यूअसली फाइनेंस कर रहा था. अरे ऐसा कब तक चलेगा? उनको फ्रीडम दो और उनके ऊपर रेस्ट्रिक्शन कम करो. उनको मतलब किसको? पब्लिक सेक्टर बिजनेसेस को. गिव देम सम फ्रीडम. एंड इफ दे आर नॉट एबल टू सस्टेन देमसेल्व्स, क्लोज देम और सेल देम. लॉस का बिजनेस चला के फायदा नहीं है, बिकॉज इट विल ओनली टेक अवे द टैक्सेस ऑफ द पीपल into unproductive investments. So these were some of the reforms. So a very important reform was here, fifth one we should write. Rest you can read, but the fifth one you should write. The approach was changed from positive list items. मतलब पहले कुछ आइटम्स जो इंपोर्ट कर सकते थे वो पॉजिटिव लिस्ट में रहते थे. अब क्यों? कि पॉजिटिव लिस्ट वाज वेरी लिटिल. बहुत ही कुछ आइटम्स थे जो आप इंपोर्ट कर सकते थे. बहुत ही कुछ आइटम थे जो आप इंपोर्ट कर सकते थे. नाउ द अप्रोच हैज चेंज फ्रॉम पॉजिटिव लिस्ट टू नेगेटिव लिस्ट. नेगेटिव लिस्ट में बहुत ही सिलेक्टेड आइटम्स है जिनका आप इंपोर्ट या एक्सपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते. रेस्ट यू कैन डू. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड पॉजिटिव टू नेगेटिव लिस्ट अप्रोच चेंज. फ्रेंड्स, is that clear? Is that clear, dear students? Let's discuss trade reforms and we'll solve a few MCQs again. Not all, of course, because we still have some classes left for this topic. So we will take full advantage of those classes by trying to go into the depth of topic. Next, we talk about, dear students, trade policy reforms. Trade policy reforms. What did I tell you? Quota was removed. What is quota? You all remember? Quantitative restriction. Quantitative restriction. जब आप ये बाधा लगा दो, when you impose a restriction that only certain number of items can be imported, that is quota. Quantitative restriction. Quantitative restriction. So suppose the quota was fixed at, let's say, 100 units. Let's say the quota was fixed at 100 units. So quota was fixed at 100 units. मतलब आप 100 यूनिट से ज्यादा इंपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते. कोटा आप क्वांटिटेटिव रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगाए हो, इसका मतलब आप 100 यूनिट से ज्यादा जो है इंपोर्ट नहीं कर सकते. बट नाउ एज आई टोल्ड यू अर्लियर, दिस वाज रिमूव्ड. नाउ देयर इज नो कोटा सिस्टम गोइंग ऑन. If something can be imported, then there is no problem in as to how many units you need to import. Focusing on a more outward oriented approach with phase reduction and simplification of tariffs and removal of licensing procedure for imports. विदेशों से सामान खरीदने के लिए देयर वर अ लॉट ऑफ इंपोर्ट रिक्वायरमेंट्स. नाउ सच रिक्वायरमेंट्स एग्जिस्ट ओनली जनरली फॉर कैपिटल गुड्स और फॉर सम हार्मफुल गुड्स. Otherwise, no such restrictions exist. This devaluation thing we have already understood. So इसको repeat करके कोई logic नहीं है. So devaluation was by 18%. Now, sir, people may get confused कि sir आप तो 30% बोले थे. Now see here. Just to avoid confusion, devaluation during this period. सर कौन सा पीरियड? लगभग 86 से 90 के बीच का अगर आपसे कोई पूछे ना, तब वहां पे रूपी डिवैल्यूएशन वाज डन बाय 30%. तब, देन. But if they talk about beyond 91, na, around that phase, then you have to remember the data of 18 to 19%. Of course, these are basic data, so please note it down. Devaluation of rupee, of course. What is devaluation, depreciation? Don't ask. We have already completed this in our previous chapters. एक में गवर्नमेंट का कंट्रोल होता है और एक में मार्केट फोर्सेस कंट्रोल करता है. Right, sir? Please note it down. I'm just waiting for you, friends, only. मैं आप ही लोगों का इंतजार कर रहा हूं. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. Okay. So now let's solve one or two MCQs. Okay. Because some we had done last day only. तो जो मैंने last day करवा दिया था, of course, I am not going to redo them. Okay. But some which I did not do, I'll definitely want to do it now. Yes. The second question. The first wave of liberalization starts in, today we have completed early wave, yes or no, from 81 to 89, yes or no? Yes, sir. अच्छा, some questions you will see I am skipping क्योंकि वो सबसे रिलेटेड हम लोगों ने अभी डिस्कशन ही नहीं किया है. ओके. वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट 11. वी हैव डन दिस. वी हैव डन इट. सर हिंदू ग्रोथ रेट. सर ये लिखा हुआ है बुक में. हाँ बिल्कुल, अगर आपने रीड किया है तो आपको मिलेगा. चलिए मैं आपको दिखा देता हूं द हिंदू ग्रोथ रेट वाला पार्ट. वी हैव डन इट इन द लास्ट क्लास. लेट मी शो इट टू यू. आपको उस सोर्स में जाके अंडरलाइन करवाएंगे ना तो आपको और बेटर याद रहेगा, और कुछ नहीं. ये रहा, देखिए लास्ट में है. In the first 3 decades after independence, India's average growth rate, in the first 3 decades after independence, India's average annual growth rate of GDP, often referred to as Hindu growth rate, was a modest 3.5%, 3.5%. See, while agriculture was not neglected, the thrust of the first decade and a half was on capital goods, capital intensive projects, rather than consumer goods. So the focus was more on industries than on consumer goods. The focus was more on industries than on consumer goods. The focus was more on industries than on consumer goods. The focus was more on industries than on consumer goods. The focus was more on industries than on consumer goods. The focus was more on industries than on consumer goods, dear students. The focus was more on industries than on consumer goods, dear students. So now let's solve that one, the Hindu growth rate question that is written in the ICAI mat. Okay. Here it is. The Hindu growth rate. Now you all will answer me 11 का क्या होगा? बताइए. The high rate of growth achieved after no. It was about 1950 to 80. Yes. The low rate of economic growth of 1950 to 80, around 3.5. Absolutely correct. 11B is definitely correct, dear students. Yes or no, dear students? Come on. Right, sir. Next, number 12, let's see. In the context of, in the context of new economic policy of 91, you see, the question is, in the context of new economic policy of 91, the term disinvestment stands for. What does disinvestment stands for? Let's see what does disinvestment stands for. A policy whereby government investments are reduced to correct fiscal deficit. A policy where government investments are reduced to correct fiscal deficit. Okay, let's see. Let's see the next one. Government investments are reduced? No. To correct fiscal deficit? I don't think so. Let's see. The policy of sale of percent of government holding of a public enterprise. It seems the perfect one. It seems the perfect one. So dear students will write 12B. And yes, I remind you again, some questions I am intentionally skipping. We will do that because वो कॉन्सेप्ट ही मैंने आपको नहीं पढ़ाया तो मैं आपको सम कैसे करवा दूं? अभी है हमारे पास क्लास, तब मैं बात करूंगा उनका. Next, moving on. The objective of introducing MRTP Act 1969 was, so many times I have discussed MRTP in today's class, to ensure that operation of economic system doesn't result in economic power in the hands of few. Yes, मतलब monopoly ना बन जाए. To provide for control of monopoly. Yes. To prohibit restrictive practices. कि आप फ्री में सामान बेच रहे हो जिससे आपका कोई कंपटीशन ही नहीं रहे. It was existing to prevent all of these. So rightfully, I think the answer should be 13 part D. 14th question is related to Green Revolution. You remember Green Revolution? The one which increased the productivity in 1960s thanks to Green Revolution. Which one is the feature of Green Revolution? Use of soil-friendly green manure to prevent, okay, to preserve fertility of soil, grow more crops, high yielding variety. Yes, scientific revolution. Yes, no green manure. It involved chemicals. यहाँ तो ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन में तो केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स और सीड्स यूज होते थे. मैन्योर तो दूर की बात है. So, dear students, on the basis of today's knowledge, we have been able to do some MCQs. We have been able to complete chapter, some part of the chapter, of course. In the next class, we are going to proceed from here. That's it for the day. Goodbye, everyone. Tata, everyone. Thank you very much.